Joining us now are two nationally recognized election experts, Bob Bauer, former White House counsel to President Obama, and Ben Ginsberg, former counsel to the RNC, to George W. Bush and Mitt Romney. They've been traveling the country as co-chairs of their new group, Pillars of the Community. This is an effort to try and ensure election officials they have the support they need to do their jobs. And thanks so much for both of you being with us. Ben, first to you, there are a lot of challenges on the Republican side, and there have been a lot of threats. Election officials afraid to do their jobs after what happened 4 years ago and what's, already happening. So what do you think that you two can accomplish? How well protected are these local officials?
Well, we hope to be able to give them the support of community leaders. I think what Bob and I have found traveling around the country is that on a local level, people care about their communities. They want peace and prosperity in their communities. And having elections that are generally accepted is part of that. So we have been getting community leaders in the most contentious election jurisdictions to kick the tires of the election system with the local election officials. And we'd like those community leaders to be able to voice their support for the job that the election officials have been doing.
Bob, what are election officials telling you? Are they afraid?
They're, of course, very concerned about an atmosphere of threat and intimidation that has unfortunately developed over the last several years. And those who've been in this work for a long time have never experienced anything like it. At the same time, they're proceeding. These are professionals. Ben and I came together in this work in the first instance when we were co-chairs of President Obama's Commission on Election Administration. We traveled around the country and we met with election officials everywhere. And the report that we produced for the president reflected the view that is true of election officials, that they are professionals and they're going to carry on with their work, but they desperately need the support of state and local community leadership that are trusted voices in their neighborhoods, where they live, and can communicate to their public that these elections are being professionally, carefully, meticulously, and impartially prepared for.
And Ben, as a Republican, you've done this for a long time, and you were a fierce partisan in 2000 when you needed to be from the perspective of George W. Bush, of course, in Bush v. Gore. But what do you see the impact of Donald Trump claiming without any evidence that might be fraud in this election? Because it seems as though he's trying to sow doubts about not just speaking about the last one, but the one to come.
Yeah, I think it is unfortunate and short-sighted. I think that trust in the election system is really important for all the fundamental basics of our country: peaceful transfer of power, losers accepting the results. And if you don't have that public faith in the reliability of elections, that's going to impact negatively whoever wins this election, whether it's Donald Trump or Kamala Harris, because this sort of real fighting over the election system is going to have two sides to it. And by questioning the results, the mechanism for delivering who wins our elections, that corrodes public faith on both sides of the aisle. So it is a genuinely harmful to the institution of American government and elections to have these evidence-free charges being bandied about.
And the latest example of the way they're trying to create challenges in advance, Bob, is this whole question in the key battleground states, of course, of questioning military ballots and ballots from people who live overseas. They've been done from forever, that people overseas who are American citizens can vote. So do you think that there are going to be problems, getting those counted with perhaps state courts?
No, I don't anticipate that these votes will not be counted, but you're quite right. It does appear, and I say this based on what they've said publicly, those behind the lawsuits have said publicly, it does appear that they are picking at various issues that they can raise that, should Trump lose, they'll bring into the public a debate as the reason why he was, quote unquote, cheated. And they're looking in every direction that you can imagine. Some of them, by the way, brought directly by the Republican National Committee, Republican Party organizations, and others by other organizations that are plainly sympathetic to them. But the goal there is to suddenly open up a question about military and overseas voting that has, for a very long time, not been treated as a source of particular controversy, and they're trying to turn it into one. And the same thing is true also about these allegations about non-citizen voting around the country.
And Ben, let's talk about the safety of these local officials. We all saw what happened to the mother and daughter in Georgia, and how it changed their lives, as the amplification by the president of the United States calling them fraudsters led to them being attacked at home, vilified. They couldn't go out.
Yeah, it's a real tragedy when something like that happens. These are people who are volunteering for their community. They're doing it to the best of their ability. There are poll watchers from both parties present, and these allegations have, since been refuted and overturned in court. And I do think that this time around, election officials are doing a much better job of preparing for this threat and providing resources for their workers, so that in working with law enforcement much more closely, I think there will be additional protections in 2024 for people working at the polls that were not present in 2020.